Hello, I'm James Cook. I'm the Technology Editor at Business Insider UK. And with me today is Milo. He's the Technology Editor at Breitbart News. Now, I will say before we begin, have a little chat and talk about why Milo's been in the news recently. I've known Milo for quite a few years, I think maybe 4 or 5 years. I actually used to work for you a long time ago, so I'm not going to make any claims to be objective. However, I do disagree with pretty much everything you say.
But you have to say that in public. I'm not sure if that's true.
I genuinely do disagree. I have notes here that prove I do.
You have some words on paper. I'm never sure how much you really disagree with.
So, Milo, you have been banned on Twitter, and not many people get banned on Twitter. It's quite an achievement for you.
Just me and Azaria.
And someone else, which we'll come to in a bit. In your opinion, Milo, why were you banned from Twitter?
I think it's fairly obvious now, as the company starts tanking and is no longer the tearaway success that its founders were envisaging, that other priorities have started to become important to its executive team, in particular to Jack Dorsey. Namely, that Twitter is becoming used as a political weapon. It is very clear that a number of social media companies in Silicon Valley are attempting to use their businesses to influence the election. They're of course perfectly entitled to do so, they're private companies after all. They're allowed to do that if they want to. My issue with it is that they don't communicate their priorities honestly to their users. And if you look at the trajectory of suspensions, bans, slaps on the wrist, various different methods that social networks have to scold people, they seem to move in entirely one political direction. And I haven't seen any, I don't think anybody seriously disagrees with that. Some people disagree. Some people are more approving than others, depending on their personal politics. But I don't think anybody seriously disagrees that it is primarily conservatives and libertarians and people who are, for instance, critical of immigration, that are bearing the brunt of it.
Is this all a very Milo-friendly overview? But you were booted off Twitter for abusing a Hollywood movie star, weren't you?
No.
So the incident with Leslie Jones, you wrote a very nasty review of the Ghostbusters movie, which
I wrote a very critical review,
which you're allowed to do, but then you kind of took it to Twitter, didn't you, and said some things in public. You called her a black dude, a black guy, and you called her stupid as well.
Well, she certainly isn't very bright. She's not particularly physically appealing either. I don't think that's grounds for expulsion from a social network when you're a senior editor at a major news corporation.
But that was what triggered you being banned, wasn't it?
Well, I think they've been looking for an excuse for quite some time, and of course, according to the identitarian politics of the progressive social justice left, disagreeing with a black woman on Twitter is about the highest crime and misdemeanor of which a person is capable. I think it was the excuse that Twitter has needed for a long time to get rid of me. You will, of course, have friends in the company like I do who are perfectly happy to admit they've had a Milo problem for some time now. They have been trying to come up with an excuse to get rid of me, and I suppose I inadvertently handed it to them.
So you don't think it was your abuse of Leslie Jones alone, of course, do you think actually Twitter was looking to boot you off the platform?
I don't agree in the slightest bit that I abused Leslie Jones. I think I cracked a few jokes at the expense of a Hollywood superstar.
I think your followers did wade in straight after you, didn't they?
Well, they waded in immediately after the review came out. I am very concerned by this trend of blaming people for the actions of others on the internet. We don't blame Justin Bieber when his fans cut themselves. We don't blame Beyonce.
Those fans were tricked into doing that by 4chan.
We don't blame Beyonce when the Beehive goes after Taylor Swift fans, and Twitter employees themselves have been seen egging on celebrity feuds that naturally trigger the most appalling language and threats and all sorts from the fans of those people. I'm thinking specifically of Taylor Swift and Kim Kardashian. Twitter employees have been seen egging that stuff on Twitter. No, the difference here, and the only appreciable difference, as somebody who looks out and tries to work out what is different from picture A and picture B, and whether there are any patterns emerging when you watch Twitter's behaviour over time, the only difference here is politics.
But your followers really did wade in as soon as you took to Twitter to talk to Leslie. I mean, you must have known that this abuse would have come along, and you did it publicly. You didn't talk to her privately. You didn't directly mention her. You retweeted her. You shared her tweets, and you knew that your followers would wade in with what is quite horrific racist abuse.
Yeah, some of it's disgusting, but to assume that that's reflective of all of my followers, and therefore somehow to assign blame by implication to me as though I'm providing cover for racists, or I'm doing something sort of knowing that other people are going to do my dirty work for me, is a sort of slimy. Well, I published a review and I cracked a few jokes. I have done that, as you well know. hundreds of times in my career before. I'm not at fault. It's not my fault that I'm popular, and I'm not responsible for what other people do. And I'm not particularly interested in policing what other people do either. I don't care much what other people say. I care what I say. I don't go in for outrage culture. I don't go in for the victimhood and grievance brigade sort of mob justice. My only responsibility is what I say. Now, whether there is a direct incitement to bad behaviour or an incitement to physical violence, that's the sort of thing that probably should be. You could argue that a private company is entitled to get rid of that kind of stuff, right? I've never done anything remotely like that. And I don't think I'm being disingenuous there. I mean, look, I'm a very critical, conservative journalist, and a very high-profile one. Of course I have very enthusiastic fans, and some of those fans take what I say very seriously, and some of those fans do say things that I would never say, and do things that I would never do. Should I modify my opinion of the Ghostbusters movie, or modify the jokes that I want to make? Because I'm going to
apologise.
No, of course not. Absolutely will not.
Do you take any responsibility for the racist abuse that came off?
Absolutely not. I was not responsible for any, nor did I endorse it, nor did I encourage it. Absolutely nothing. Nothing of that order whatsoever. And to hold an individual responsible for the actions of some of the other 300 million people on Twitter is absurd to me. And we don't do it in the case of celebrities that have the right politics. We only do it with conservatives.
So that leads me on quite nicely to your argument that Twitter is censoring conservative voices and banning conservative users. Other than you, who else has been banned on Twitter?
I don't think you can reasonably deny that. I obviously, as somebody. Okay, well, you can unreasonably deny it, or you can simply be wrong, which you are entitled to do too. But I don't think anybody seriously claims that conservatives are not bearing the brunt of censorship, whether it is on Facebook with immigration in Germany, or indeed anywhere else, or whether it's on Twitter.
So conservatives are being censored more than anyone else on social networks?
Absolutely, there's no question whatsoever.
Like who? Who is being censored?
Well, I followed, obviously, the alt-right, which is the mischievous, dissident, naughty contingent.
And you've admitted repeatedly that there are racist elements within that share racist and anti-Semitic graphics.
Yeah, so
shouldn't they be censored?
Well, what I wrote in my column, An Establishment Conservative's Guide to the Alt-Right, was that what I call 1488ers, the genuine, serious, real racists, represent a tiny fraction of an otherwise history. It's a movement against globalism and globalization, a movement back towards nativism, nationalism, in the good ways, not in the ways that necessarily we've had in Europe in history, but American nationalism, given that America is founded on principles, not ethnicity and geography, seems to be entirely rational, reasonable, and respectable. So what I did write in that column was that there is a tiny sliver in the alt-right that is genuinely racist, but the vast majority of stuff you'll see from alt-right types is very young people who really have no understanding of what. Well, I'll give you an example of something that I find interesting that other conservatives don't understand, and I part company from other conservatives on this, not just from liberal journalists. The anti-Semitic stuff on Twitter. So you'll see alt-right accounts sometimes goading
you see it quite
Jewish journalists all the time, right, on Twitter. Well, the reason they do it is not because there is some outbreak of anti-Semitism in the US. There is not some resurgence of National Socialism in America. That's simply not happening. What it is 17-year-olds who are sick of grievance and outrage culture, who see when the right bleats about anti-Semitism.
But does that make it okay with their teenagers?
Let me finish. They see on the right, with bleating about anti-Semitism, as they would see it, nothing different from the left bleating about sexism and racism. And their view, which I think is actually probably shared by most of the population, is that this sort of constant policing of, that's sexist, that's racist, that's transphobic, that's homophobic, has gone a bit far. And ordinary people are being called names when they don't deserve it. And for young people who have no living relatives who were alive during the Holocaust, and who don't appreciate, as we appreciate, what is unique and different about anti-Semitism, they have no historical understanding of, anti-Semitism is thousands of years old. Tacitus wrote that the Jews were people born for slavery. Anti-Semitism has a uniquely virulent history in our species, right? They don't have much of that understanding. They're 17-year-old kids, and the vast majority
actually anti-Semitic or racist.
No, I don't think they are.
But they are sharing anti-Semitic and racist content.
Yes, but the primary purpose of it is simply to get underneath people's skin, which it does.
Well, it does. It's racist anti-Semitic content. And how does Twitter solve this problem? Because people have been very upset by that. Should this content be removed from Twitter? How does Twitter deal with this abuse?
Well, they're entitled to do what they want. There's a balancing act to be done.
Twitter do?
Well, I think there's a balancing act to be done between not clamping down on the outer limits of free speech, which are where this is the only place free speech matters, right? When you talk about the importance of free speech, you're not talking about somebody's right to say they like U2 or Madonna. You're talking about the rights of people to say edgy, dangerous, dissident, mischievous things, right? Because it is those people, and by the way, mostly this has been an engine of progressive progress in history. It is those people who move civilization forward. It is dissident, edgy, mischievous, defiant speech and actions which gave women the vote, which ended slavery, which,
there's a difference between mischievous and racist and anti-Semitic.
Well, yes, but of course those definitions change over time. There are things considered racist today that were not 50 years ago, and vice versa. With the rise of microaggressions, all this kind of stuff. Stuff that didn't used to be racist is now considered racist by progressive elites, and stuff that didn't used to be considered racist now is. Fashions change, and that's the problem with Twitter wading in. When Twitter has a monopoly, and again, I part company from my conservative colleagues on this too. I do believe, as Aaron Schwartz, the late founder of Reddit, said, that there is a meaningful sense in which censorship can, the term censorship can be applied to private corporations when they have a monopoly on certain kinds of speech. Twitter does.
Well, Twitter doesn't have a monopoly on free speech. Of course,
no,
you yourself have argued that they use a basis shrinking.
No, not on free speech online, but they have a monopoly on certain kinds of speech, and they have invented, which was his point, which was where my sentence was headed. They have created an entirely new space, right? And they have a total monopoly on that space. No non-Twitter companies can post on Twitter. Now, the significance of the platform, right, is huge. It is the place where journalists communicate and virtue signal and do all sorts of other things with one another. What is allowed on Twitter and not on Twitter determines not only what news stories get covered, but how they're covered too. Now, what I try to look for is the exceptions and is the inconsistencies and patterns. I noticed, for instance, that Twitter removed a photo that I posted after the truck attacks in Nice, right, of the girl under the metal, they put the metal sheets over bodies, right?
Yeah.
That was on the front cover of the Times, but when I tweeted it, it was unacceptable. Why? Maybe it has something to do with the
double standards.
Absolutely. Now look at the people who got banned. And you ask this question, I'll answer it slightly more directly now. I have seen as somebody who has given the alt-right fair hearing. I'm not on the alt-right, but I've tried to give the alt-right a fair hearing in the press, right? As somebody who follows them, I'm seeing very popular accounts with 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 followers dropping like flies. Also, there are people...
Why is that? Is that Twitter being censoring them, or is that because they're sending out abusive messages?
Well, again, abuse is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, I don't particularly consider...
You acknowledge that they post things that some consider abusive?
I acknowledge that they post things that some people will consider offensive, which is most of the point but most of the reason they post them, right? They don't post these things because, primarily, broadly speaking, for the most part, they don't tweet these things because they're racist or because they're anti-Semites. They tweet these things to get at people, to wind them up. You, as somebody deeply embedded in internet subcultures, understand this instinctively. When you see it on 4chan, you understand what's going on, and you understand what the social dynamics are behind this. But you seem to suspend that knowledge when you recognise that the same people, if I may say so, the same people on 4chan, when they arrive on Twitter, suddenly they're judged by different standards. Now that's fine, because Twitter's a different company. But I think you understand the social dynamics behind trolling. I think you do.
So your argument seems to be that these posts aren't racist in intention, but you acknowledge that content itself could be construed as racist when posted online.
Yes, of course. If you decide to take the bait, then yes.
Right. So, other than you banned from Twitter, we've also had Azalea Banks banned, the rapper.
Right.
Why was Azalea Banks banned from Twitter?
Well, the only thing I would observe about her is, she posted offensive, I suppose, and edgy things.
Well, she posted a homophobic and racist rant online and was immediately banned.
No, she's done that for years. Why was she banned when she was banned?
Why
was she banned when she was banned? No, she didn't step it up. Why was she banned when she was banned? Do you know what happened 2 weeks before?
I don't know what she done.
She endorsed Donald Trump.
And you think that's why Azalea Banks is banned?
Of course. She'd been doing this for years. Why did she get banned? Because she endorsed Donald Trump. 2 weeks later, she was gone.
Azalea Banks was banned because she endorsed Donald Trump.
2 weeks after she did it, she was gone.
It seems to me that every
that's the only different thing
about coincidence is that they've been abusing people on Twitter. That's quite a big coincidence, isn't it?
No, I don't. No, I mean, look, celebrity spats, regardless of the language involved, is aren't you sad that she and Zayn can't have it out on Twitter anymore? I am. People want to see that.
Homophobic abuse isn't there. Twitter has an abuse problem which has been acknowledged in the past, and banning users like you and Azalea Banks.
Well, saying it has been acknowledged in the past presents as a sort of fait accompli, and I don't agree with this. And this is an analysis which is shared by Twitter executives and journalists, your analysis, but it is not shared by some of Twitter's investors, and it is not shared by...
Which Twitter investors don't share that?
Well, you know the kind of people I can pick up the phone to, and you know, because you know that I'm not at liberty to drop their names. If they want to go to the press, and some of them, by the way, will be soon, they're entitled to do so. What I can tell you on the record is that I have spoken to at least 2 people who are seriously considering large-scale shorting of this stock. This is a sign that people who care about this sort of stuff don't buy the abuse and harassment line. And let me just sketch out why I think this is wrong. The accepted line among journalists, and so a lot of Twitter staff, and many senior Twitter staff, is that Twitter's growth problems stem from so-called abuse and harassment, right? I take a completely different analysis. I think the problem with Twitter is that they are clamping down and punishing, and now starting to step up bans on all the most interesting people. Twitter is nothing without its content. You don't go there because the product is terrible. The product is counterintuitive. It doesn't pick up users. I think you probably agree with me on this. It's not intuitive like Facebook. Ordinary people who log into Twitter just don't understand how it works, right? Which is why they have to shovel these recommended users at you so that you at least have something to interact with, right? The 2 primary problems for Twitter for user growth, retention, and time spent on site, and all the kind of metrics that investors care about. 1, the product is terrible, and it's always been terrible. 2, the most interesting people on Twitter don't have a very good time on there and don't last long. And you can talk to, this is not just conservatives, by the way. You can talk to, up-and-coming rappers. There's an up-and-coming rapper who, actually he is a Trump fan as well, although he doesn't really talk about it. Up-and-coming rappers who tweet, edgy stuff, who tweet drug-related things. They too are having, tweets forcibly deleted by Twitter. All of the most interesting people, that's the artists. And I'm not talking about, journalists and politicians, all have to split in a certain way.
With right-wing and conservative.
No. Well, I do think that if you want to be a punk these days, you have to be a conservative, for sure. I think that the liberals have got such a narrow band of acceptable thought and speech that if you do want to be dissident and mischievous, damn right you've got to be a Republican these days. Yes, you have to be a conservative, because if you want to say something that annoys the establishment, well, you've only got one direction to go, because the establishment's left-wing now. It wasn't always, by the way. In the 90s, the religious right had all the power in cultural scolding, right? And it's happened very, very quickly. I don't like the religious right any more than I like the progressive left. I've said so repeatedly in my talks. I see no reason to believe that video games should be censored or changed or restricted from sale because of school shootings. Likewise, I see no reason to believe that video games magically produce sexism. That the same instincts are responsible for these 2 bogus claims, and they are the sort of censorious, nannying, school-marmish authoritarianism of the religious right in the 90s and the progressive left today. What I'm suggesting to you is that Twitter, run by the progressive left, is engaging in the same sort of cultural scolding and attempted censorship, at least, and active censorship in some cases, that the religious right was doing in the 90s, and I don't like it any more now than I liked it then.
Quick fire one for you. Jack Dorsey has been very active politically on Twitter, sharing his views on Black Lives Matter and subjects like that. Do you think he should be posting content like that?
He's entitled to do it. I mean, it's nice that he's being more honest about where his political allegiances lie. I think he's sending a signal to people, because the company, of course, it would be spectacularly disastrous for Twitter to come out and be honest about its politics, right? It's very, you know as well as I do, the kinds of people who work at Twitter aren't just, they don't just happen to be Democrats. The kind of people who work at Twitter, are in many cases hardline Black Lives Matter, third-wave feminists, social justice warriors.
Right? And you think that's causing them to ban right-wing people from the site?
Of course they are.
Where's the evidence of that? Where are the people?
Well, you have to look at the patterns.
We've got you, we've got Azalea Banks, we've got Chuck Johnson,
you've got
who called for a petition to take out a Black Lives Matter protester,
and
nameless rappers.
But it surprises me that you, as a journalist who presumably have a love of language, would, and I think you know you're doing this, if you don't mind me saying this, disingenuously misrepresenting metaphoric language. You know perfectly.
You mean Chuck Johnson was showing metaphors?
Perfectly well that the meaning of Chuck Johnson's tweet, which was related to crowdfunding, when he said, "I'm raising money to take out DeRay," you know perfectly well that what he meant by take out was publish a piece of journalism that would damage this person's reputation. Nobody believes it. Let me finish. No one believes for a second that he was raising money to have DeRay physically harmed or killed. No one believes that. No one believes that. Who I've never met anybody who believes
people
that.
inside Twitter believe that.
Well, because they're insane.
So you're working with Chuck Johnson much more closely now, aren't you, on Facebook?
No, we've
You're not working with
we've exchanged much more closely. No, I've always had an open dialogue with Charles, and he occasionally produces some research that we have used at Breitbart Tech. I mean, I've met him a couple of times.
But you've claimed that you're working with him on a project to name and shame Facebook employees who work on the trending news which is the bit on the right of the site.
That's
the biased against right-wing news.
That's the research that I was talking about. It wasn't our scoop that was censoring conservatives. So where I work, we are the #1 political publisher on Facebook and the #1 political publisher on Twitter. Not thanks to those networks, but in spite of them. I can't imagine how much more popular it would be if these algorithms and if the people who were running them weren't actively punishing us. But it is very clear, and I don't think any sensible person disagrees with this, that these companies are staffed by people with very particular politics. If you run a company like Facebook, which has, 1 billion users plus, which controls the dialogue of ordinary citizens to a huge extent, to the point where ordinary German citizens now, as a result of the deal that Merkel did with Zuckerberg, cannot express perfectly reasonable, respectable, mainstream anxieties about the effects of mass immigration without being branded, abusers, without having their anxieties and concerns labelled hate speech, which, in my view, is obscene. When that is going on, you cannot reasonably be sceptical of a claim that Facebook is hostile to conservatives. Now, Mark Zuckerberg would never, this company is notoriously opaque, and he is notoriously difficult to get to. Why would Zuckerberg have invited 30 conservatives to Palo Alto in a meeting to reassure them if there wasn't a problem? Of course there was a problem. There is a problem. And Facebook invited those conservatives to calm everybody down, and then, as far as I can tell, double down on what they were already doing.
Do you think Facebook made it worse for right-wing news outlets following that meeting?
Yes, I do.
Where's the
I do.
evidence?
I think they did it.
Has Breitbart seen less referrals from Facebook?
We have.
Because Breitbart's very keen to trumpet how much it gets from Facebook.
Well, I think we do amazingly on Facebook despite Facebook.
You think Facebook is actively trying to hurt you as an organisation?
Well, certainly in the trending. I don't have any evidence beyond the trending news.
You don't have any evidence?
I don't have any evidence beyond. You have to let me finish the sentences.
Please go ahead.
Beyond the trending news widget, which was obviously the subject of international controversy, so
people
which wasn't our story.
We
asked. No, I don't think it was. And what was interesting to me was, Facebook invited some soft conservatives, some safe ones, people like Glenn Beck, who are only just right of centre these days.
It's not conservative enough for you.
No, exactly that. Not conservative enough.
They weren't conservative enough.
Well, they didn't invite any of the people who were. Well, they didn't start off by inviting any of the people who were really suffering this. Glenn Beck is never going to have a problem that much of a problem on Facebook because he's not that right wing. Problem, I think, was that they wanted to do this meeting as a photo op, to reassure everyone that everything was okay. Everything is not okay. They did invite us. They did invite us to attend that meeting. We said no. Because what I wanted to do, what the editor-in-chief of Breitbart wanted to do, was sit down with Mark Zuckerberg and ask him serious questions. This meeting, which was off the record, every journalist who went there had to sign NDA saying they weren't going to, they weren't going to reveal the contents of anything they'd seen on Facebook. None of the meeting. This is the most opaque photo op, and most transparent bit of PR, a bit of crisis PR that I've seen in quite some time. What we wanted was an open, transparent, half an hour, sit down, and it didn't have to be Zuckerberg, could have been another senior executive, right? And ask them some questions about what decision making goes into Facebook's algorithms and the sorts of people they employ to manually select stories, okay? We wanted to know that because our readers wanted to know that. Other conservative outlets were happier to go and show off about the fact they were going to Facebook. They didn't really want answers for their readers. We did, so we said no to that meeting.
Fair enough. So you claim in 2012 this column, everyone keeps dredging up.
I know, you all have the same research.
I'm going to dread this up as well.
I think we were working together when I published
I'm not entirely sure if we were, but you claim in 2012 that people who use algorithms on Twitter are sociopaths. Are you a sociopath?
Oh, I definitely have a little bit of sociopathy in me, for sure. But then sociopaths are the people who keep society ticking. If you look at the professions that have the highest degrees of sociopaths, they're all the people you need. They are doctors, lawyers, and, by the way, journalists.
You seem proud to admit to that.
No, I just think it's important to have people who are able to separate emotions from reason. Now, what cognitive psychology tells, cognitive psychology studies tell us is that people tend to make decisions based on emotion and sort of atavistic instinct, and later justify them with reason. So what we tend to do is we have a sort of gut instinct about something, we make our decision, and then we construct logic around it to justify our decision after the fact. That's how decision making works for most people. It takes sort of a conscious effort to decide something through reason. If everyone were operating from reason and not emotion, then everybody would be Republican. So what we tend
I can't let that.
I'm glad you got that. What I think is valuable in society is having people who are able to separate emotion from reason, because if you can be sad about someone dying, but if you're not able to fix them and get better, you can't treat them, right? So we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need journalists. In our profession, there's some of the highest proportion of sociopaths. If you're not a sociopath in journalism, you're probably not a very good journalist.
You need sociopaths. That is worrying.
Of course we need sociopaths. So sociopaths keep society ticking over. I mean, politicians, of course, is another one. All of the people who actually get stuff done in civilization tend to be somewhere on the scale of sociopathy, and to suggest that is somehow a problem or to deny that that's the case is insane.
I'm glad you're confident in that. I'm keen to open up to some questions on the Facebook stream, because we've had quite a few come through.
Sure.
I had one person say, I applaud Twitter for banning Milo because Twitter should be an enjoyable experience, or at least not a painful one. Do you agree with that?
No, I think Twitter's. I mean, one of the problems with Twitter's products is that it doesn't have many good ways to get people who don't want to hear from each other not hearing from each other. Right? He may not enjoy my style of comedy or commentary or performance, right? But plenty of people do. When I was suspended, I had 340,000 followers, which for a journalist is a lot. There aren't many journalists with those kind of followings. I like to say I don't really have readers. I have fans. My fans are very enthusiastic, right? And I have similar numbers.
Well, I have pages of abuse they sent in your name to a black
actress. They didn't send it in my name.
Well, no, your name is literally here on all of these tweets.
Well, they didn't send it in my name.
There we go.
I'm sure there are plenty of people tagging me.
Free Milo. I can't even read that one out, actually. In fact, so last night I hinted that I was talking to you today, and immediately I was.
Let me finish my answer first. What I think is that he may not enjoy my style of commentary or my politics or anything else about me, and he's perfectly entitled to dislike me, but plenty of other people do. What you're effectively saying, I want Twitter to be a pleasant place, is you want to sort of you want to throw yourself into this cult of niceness where everyone has to be in the sisterhood and upvoting and being lovely to each other, and I don't really buy that. I quite like being mean. I quite like being sarcastic and bitchy, and other people like it when I am too. If you're into that. When it goes too far, people can tell me, right? Plenty of people. Well, if I do it for long enough and enough people don't like it, then I'm going to have a career left. People won't pay me the extraordinary amounts of money they do and put me on television.
This is quite important. What happens when abuse gets too much? How does someone stop that? Do they turn off the computer?
Yes, it's not difficult. There's a button. You just go.
But that doesn't stop the effects of the abuse, does it?
What are the effects?
That's like telling an anorexic person
to
eat some food, isn't it?
No.
Abuse can go too far.
No, it's a terrible analogy.
I think that's quite fair, actually.
No,
if you're abusing someone on Twitter and you repeatedly do that, that continues past the computer screen, does it not?
Does it?
I would say it does. There's a case of a young gay man in the US who was secretly filmed having sex with another man, and sadly he killed himself after that because he was horrible.
That's not a Twitter thing.
Well, let me finish. And police looked at his internet history, and shortly before he killed himself, he repeatedly read the tweets directed at him, including that has a real effect which permeated outside of Twitter.
Well,
so you're claiming you can just
I don't think it's
get rid of it.
Well, of course,
that doesn't really hold up.
Of course you can, and that Tyler created a tweet which we can't say on a family-friendly show, which you know and like, and I know and like, and I think everybody knows on the internet now. Basically expresses my views on the subject, right? Perhaps what we need to do, rather than risking cutting off the interesting people on Twitter, perhaps what we need to do is discourage people from buying into victimhood and grievance culture. Discourage people from believing that words on a screen somehow equate to physical violence. Now, this is a larger cultural issue that Twitter cannot get involved in solving, at least I hope it doesn't. And this starts in university, safe space culture. The idea that when I go to a college campus, you get these special snowflakes who say that my opinions, and they use exactly this phrasing, my opinions, gay conservative opinion, is a threat to their physical safety. And they're not suggesting, or they're not saying, is that somebody having listened to me is going to go beat them up. They are saying that my words cause them such physical and emotional trauma that, for instance, they're not able to sit their exams. That is completely insane.
Do you think they're lying?
Yes. In some cases, but in some cases, no. One of the things, I mean, people never really understand about me that I perhaps don't do a good enough job of making clear, is that many of my positions, although argued through satire, come from compassion. And when, for instance, I wrote those columns about J.C. Penney, about fat shaming, I've got in huge trouble for one particular fat shaming tweet, which I know most of my friends, most people who liked what I do, didn't like either. When I do that, it is primarily because I'm horrified by vulnerable, by vulnerable, impressionable young women who arrive at college and are told by these hideous lesbianic gender studies monster professors that it is okay to become these grotesque, quivering monsters. It is okay to be fat and to burp and fart and other words I can't say. And that their self-esteem shouldn't be determined by what they look like and all the rest of it. Well, in a woman's case, that's a lie. And to encourage these young women to kill themselves, to get chronic diseases and to die sooner, to me, it strikes me as horribly sociopathic. We have a problem in beauty culture, in America in particular. The hot people are being marginalised in mainstream beauty culture. That strikes me as absurd, but it's true. I mean, we're now seeing people on the cover used to be hot. Now people on the cover are Lena Dunham and Amy Schumer. These women are not attractive and not talented, but they have the right politics. But that is a trend. I mean, look at the Men's Health magazine covers, right? They used to have there's no real male supermodels, maybe apart from Gandhi, but they used to have strikingly beautiful men on the cover. Now they have relatable models. The bodies aren't as jacked, not as defined. The faces are more relatable. Everything is moving in that direction. And when I critique the body positivity industry in very harsh terms, what I'm really drawing attention to is that. Now, the same thing I think is, my Twitter was a sort of
not anymore.
Part satire, part spitefulness, part sort of performance art. But the vast majority of what I write, and I think that you know me well enough to know this, is informed by a sincere vision of how the world ought to be, and how we could get better from all this stuff. The primary problem, it seems to me, in social media and the primary problem in culture right now is this indulgence of victimhood and grievance, and encouraging people to blur the lines between mean words on the internet and physical safety.
Are you playing a victim a bit?
No.
By going around doing these interviews claiming Twitter's censoring you?
No, I'm not a victim. This has been fabulous for me. Are you kidding? This is the best thing Twitter could ever have done for me. They've turned me... No, there are no victims here. There was a dumb decision by Twitter which is going to hasten that company's end. But, no, it's been fantastic for me. I'm a household name in America as a result of this. I was already on my way there anyway. But, I was a sensation at the Republican National Convention. I could not walk along the corridor without being accosted by people who said, what Twitter did is unacceptable, we love you, man. Right? I could not get across the corridor. I was doing 70, 80 interviews a day. This, quite aside from the strategic stupidity of Twitter doing this when I had the world's media at my disposal, CNN, CNBC, Fox, everything that I did last week, right? And the week before. In no way am I a victim. I'm the beneficiary of this in a way, because they have drawn so much more attention to me, and now people go, the primary thing that I get in my inbox, I get hundreds of emails about this a day, and what most people say is, I heard you were booted off Twitter for racist tweets, which of course is not true, but that's how it was reported. So I went and looked you up on YouTube. Dude, you're amazing. I love you. Subscribe to every platform you're on. That's been the effect of this. Am I a victim? Quite the opposite.
Do you ever feel guilty that you're building this media profile based on bullying other people?
No, because I don't bully other people.
Not for a second. You don't look at what you've posted and feel you've been guilty. Because 2012 Milo would have been guilty. What changed?
My views have evolved significantly since that, and they've evolved because I've seen how these companies actually operate, and I've realised, and I said this to Alison on CNN. I've realised actually that quite often the trolls aren't the bad guys. Quite often the trolls are the only people telling the truth. Because it's the trolls who are poking fun at the establishment consensus. The establishment consensus is insane now. I mean, you can't have... you've got conservative newspapers telling lies to women about the wage gap. The wage gap is not a thing. It does not exist. No reputable economist takes this seriously. It's a sort of meme that won't die in the media, right? There is no wage gap between men and women in the West. It's not true, right? The economics simply do not stand up.
There is some dispute over
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. There is
dispute over this.
Well, it's a dispute from idiots, sure. But a female Harvard economist tried her hardest to make this case stand up 3 weeks ago and couldn't, right? It's just not true. But conservative newspapers publish this every day. Likewise, with campus rape culture, the idea that British and American campuses, and this is primarily an American thing, but British and American campuses are hotbeds of rape and dangerous places for women. They're the safest places for women. What these people expect us to believe, as many people have heard me say repeatedly in the past, is that campuses are as dangerous as the Congo, where 1 in 4 women are raped and it's used as a weapon of war. It's so obviously nonsensical. Now, when that's the consensus, when that is what politicians say, Obama says both of these things, right? When that's what politicians are saying, that's what the media is saying, that's what the entertainment industry is saying, that's what academics are saying, and all of them are wrong and or lying. And the trolls are the only people telling the truth. Damn right I'm on the side of the trolls.
So I'm keen to get another question here before we wrap up. We have a question which I think is quite an interesting one. Someone says, why does Milo target feminists when in reality they're the activists who will bring about equality in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So feminism has a very proud history and has achieved some remarkable and laudable things. Feminism in the West has got women to vote, got women equal access to education, to the workplace, to equal pay, yes, and various other things. We should be hugely proud of those accomplishments because they are not things that women enjoy in much of the rest of the world, right? They're things that people have in modern, Western, liberal, capitalist democracies.
Do you consider yourself a feminist?
No, funnily enough I do, but I'm a sort of Christine Hoff Sommers kind of feminist, a sort of equity second wave feminist, you know? I think that women deserve equal access and pay and opportunities and access to everything, right? If that's being a feminist, then sure, I'm a feminist. That's not my analysis of what modern feminism is seeking to do. My analysis of modern feminism is that it is a hateful, spiteful, man-hating, an obnoxious set of conspiracy theories that whose primary purpose seems to be to bash men. They're not really interested in equality at all. They're interested in peddling lies about gender, lies about society, lies about pay, lies about rape, and all sorts of things. I can only suppose why, which is that when you look down faculty lists of most gender studies departments, they're all either divorcees or lesbians. Now, I can't tell you why feminism has gone off the rails like it has, but what I can tell you is that most women agree with me. Fewer than 1 in 5 American women describe themselves as a feminist. What a remarkable statistic, and that was commissioned by Vox, not a right-wing outlet at all. 7% in Britain of women, where we are eminently more sensible about these things, describe themselves as feminists. So when you hear, the media speaking in loud clarion calls, all in unison about, feminism, they are so out of step with the public. It's not true.
Do you think feminism is part of the reason why you were banned from Twitter?
Yes, of course, because I think it's easy to... Well, it's easy if you're an idiot to mischaracterize my objections to third-wave feminism as misogyny or woman-hating. It's easy if you're an idiot or disingenuous, or a liberal, they all mean the same thing, to mischaracterize disagreements with the strategy and objectives and behavior of Black Lives Matter with not liking black people. It's easy to mispresent that if you want to. People are so anxious to virtue signal to each other these days about what good, righteous, upstanding people they are. They don't look into the details, which is why reporters were perfectly happy saying I was responsible for leading a campaign of racist harassment against Leslie Jones. They won't quote a single thing I said because they know that nothing I said supports that position. They also know, however, that many of their readers will simply rush to Twitter as a sort of knee-jerk, he's a monster, because that's how we're trained to behave now. My objection to feminism is an objection to what feminism has become. That is an analysis I would submit to you that is shared by the vast majority of women, right? To say nothing of men, right? Women do not identify as feminists, and those numbers are going down, not up. Why? Because feminism has achieved everything it needed to achieve, and because feminists themselves, if you look at the people who describe themselves as feminists and how they behave now, whether it's Guardian columnists or academics or activists, they are monsters. They are awful, hateful, bigoted, dishonest people. And women see that and don't want to be associated with it. If I am a ruthlessly mean and endlessly mean-spirited critic of feminism, I am doing so with the backing of the vast majority of the public.
So one final thing to end on. I know it's a subject very close to your heart, which is Donald Trump.
Yes.
Can he win the election?
Yes. It won't be easy. The electoral math is not easy for him. He has to take between 3 and 5 states that Republicans haven't taken for a while, and it looks like he might lose a couple of states where Republicans really ought to win. I think what will help him and I don't say this with any pleasure or sort of joyful anticipation, I think what will help him is I don't see an end to the frequency of terrorist attacks between now and November, and I think that will help. I think that some of the motivating anxieties behind Trump's support are things that people can relate to and understand. And when they set aside the name calling from most of the media, you know, oh, they're racists, they're white supremacists, everybody knows that's not true, right? What people, you know, what people hear when they hear Trump talking, that he wants to preserve America, the idea of greatness and Western civilization, is something that nobody's been saying for a while, and I think most people can get behind. Hillary, a couple of things need to happen for him to win, probably, right? No let up in the terrorist stuff. Hillary doing something awful. She probably won't get indicted, but I mean, she probably won't get prosecuted or anything. But it might happen, or she might do something else to implode. I mean, she's deeply unpopular, even with her own voters. Nobody likes Hillary Clinton.
She's ahead in the polls right now, though, isn't she?
No, her unfavourability is lower than Trump's, but which is a weird sort of metric, which only Americans really pay attention to, but it's useful for some things.
It's only Americans that are going to vote in this election, isn't it?
No, I mean unfavourability. We don't really do unfavourability polls, you know, to quite the same extent. But in terms of like who you would vote for tomorrow, they have been crisscrossing each other for a couple of weeks.
If Donald Trump does become president, do you think he will be a good, capable president?
Yes. The power of the president in America is circumscribed, you know, by many layers of protections, right? The system in America is designed to limit the power of that individual. If Trump builds a wall, fixes a bit of trade, and then can't do anything else because he gets locked up with Congress or whatever, that to me is a success. My favourite president in American history is Coolidge because he did so little. I don't think we need any more activist presidents enlarging the size of the federal government, coming up with new schemes and ideas of how to spend American taxpayers' money. It'd be quite nice, actually, after 8 years of Obama activism and innovation and Obamacare and all this kind of other stuff, if the next president just put the brakes for a little while on what was and sat back and worked out what effects on American society 8 years of Obama have had. And after that, and, if Trump is like a sort of Coolidge with bluster, yeah, if he's a sort of braggadocio, drenched version of Coolidge, I could live with that. And I think most Americans could too, because...
Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think Donald Trump is going to put the brakes on?
I don't think he's going to be able to accomplish very much after the first year. I mean, no president really ever does, but will he build the wall? Hopefully. Will he fix some stuff on trade? Probably. The really exciting thing about Donald Trump, the thing that I care most about, and the reason I like him so much, and what animates a lot of his younger followers, and there's a large alt-right contingent in this, is that he represents an existential threat to political correctness. He represents a threat to the sort of cosy establishment that limits the acceptable bound, that sets the acceptable bounds of thought and speech, right? Trump has gone there. He's said the unsayable. He has opened up the debate on immigration. He has made it possible not just to say rude things, but to double down on them. And guess what? Nothing bad happens after you're rude about people. It's not the end of the world, people, and sometimes it even performs a useful function. If Donald Trump can end political correctness in America, I think he will have performed the most useful service that any president has in 25 years.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. Thank you, Milo, for coming on and seeing us today. It's been an interesting chat. I apologise if anyone was offended, so we didn't get banned.
I don't apologise if you were offended.